Today's interview is with Kent Caldwell. Today's interview is a very special one because Kent is also a fellow Cirque du Soleil performer. He works for a show called Mystere here in Las Vegas, but he also invests in real estate, so that's kind of unique. It was really fun to talk to him from a performer's perspective, right? Talking about the challenges that we have, the fun we have performing. So if you're interested in Cirque du Soleil and you're interested in real estate, you should definitely check today's interview out. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE Podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write a review. And if you guys would like to talk to me, I know I'd like to talk to you. I love talking about real estate. If there's anything you want to talk about in real estate, please go to the link in the description below and sign up for a call, or go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com, my website, and sign up there. I'd love to get to know you more, what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, and if there's any way that I can help you achieve those goals. So enjoy today's interview with Kent Caldwell, a really fun one. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler, and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have Kent with us. How's it going, man?
Hey, Barry, thanks for having me.
I would ask you how the weather is, but I think I know. We're both in sunny Las Vegas. It's very rare that I have someone that is in the same city, let alone even the same states as me. So it's kind of cool that we should do this in person.
October's been awesome. Been really, really warm.
Yeah, and warm but kind of cooler at the same time.
Cool at night, which is great.
Yeah, it's perfect. Cool. Well, before we dive into this fun conversation, Kent is also a Cirque du Soleil performer as well, so we have a lot in common. But he'll tell you more about his background. There's some questions that I like to ask at the start. That's just for fun. I guess I'm thinking about calling it for fun, but we'll see what I come up with. So here we go. The first one is, what's your favorite meal?
Okay. I love all kinds of food, but I would say from my time spent in Japan with my first Cirque du Soleil job, I really came to love yakiniku, which is Japanese barbecue. You basically sit around, cook the barbecue together in a pit. Korean barbecue is pretty much the same thing, but Japanese barbecue is just slightly different flavors, and it's awesome. Yeah.
Never had that, but it sounds delicious. What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is Pan's Labyrinth. If we get talking, you'll find out that I'm an artist and a bit of a gaming nerd and pop culture guy. And Guillermo del Toro is my favorite director. And I saw Pan's Labyrinth when I was really young. And it's, for me, this beautiful film about the Spanish Civil War with this girl in this fairy tale world. I love monsters. You could see all sorts of cool monsters, but it's just also this poetic pontification, I guess, on the reality of the Spanish Civil War, and it's a really cool movie.
Nice. Okay. Cool. I've never seen that. If you could visit any planet, which one would it be?
We'll say Venus, because I read an article recently that scientists had found some trace of some chemical that would indicate potentially life in Venus, and we don't think of Venus as having life on it because it's very hot and stormy, and we kind of always look to Mars. So it kind of piqued my interest a little bit, and I hadn't thought about Venus in a while, but I'll go with Venus. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. If you could choose any superpower, what would it be?
I definitely would like to be able to fly.
Okay.
No question. That would be so cool. Yeah.
I would like that one as well. I go back and forth between that one and being invisible. I don't know. I like the idea of both.
Okay. Yeah. I have dreams. Everybody has dreams where you can fly, and I just always think they're so fun when they go well. So
until you start falling, you ever have that dream when you're falling? Cool. Well, thanks for doing that. That was a lot of fun. I always like doing that and hearing people's answer. Now, do you want to give us, I mentioned a little bit about it, but do you want to give us an idea about your background, what you've been up to and what your current focus is?
Sure. So I went to college at the University of Michigan, and growing up, I always was a gymnast my whole life. So I went to the University of Michigan, where I studied in the art school, and I competed on the gymnastics team for the NCAA. We finished my senior year. We ended up winning the NCAA team championship for men's gymnastics, which was an awesome experience to share that with all my teammates. And gymnastics became a big part of my life. After school, I moved abroad and did a little bit of coaching for a while, but I had a teammate in college get me into the idea. He first sort of tuned me into Cirque du Soleil as a potential career option. And it was something I hadn't considered before because I honestly was very intimidated by the company, and I didn't think I had a skill set for it. But about a year after school, I had put together a demo tape, and Cirque du Soleil gave me a call. They wanted to teach me Chinese poles and have me move to Japan like 2 weeks after they called me. It was crazy. Like, you know, Barry, like you've met people in Cirque and everybody's got a different story and a crazy story. But it was like, you know, I just kind of turned my life around and moved out to Japan and ended up learning Chinese poles. So eventually got located to Vegas in 2012, where I've been performing with Mystère ever since. So for the past 8 years or so, I've been on Mystère. I'm now considered a Chinese pole specialist. I don't know how that happened because I used to be a gymnast. But I guess we have the good kind of foundation, the strength and body awareness to handle an apparatus like that. And Mystère in particular is a good fit for me as a show because I'm able to tumble in it. Also, we've got a tumbling act, and I picked up some skills like stilt walking and things that I really like. I ended up really falling in love with performing on stage and kind of getting into characters and stuff. It was something that really wasn't on my radar. A lot of people we meet backstage who maybe grew up and went to like theater tech school, or the stage was like really a part of their whole life, and it's something I discovered a little bit later, but I really fell in love with. So I really enjoyed my time there. Of course, the pandemic hit, and now you or I kind of have no idea what's going on. I don't know whether to say I am or was in Mystère, or, you know, I anticipate coming back, but who knows when that'll be. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the unknown right now, right? It's like people always ask me, what do you do? I said, well, I work for Cirque du Soleil, or I think I work for Cirque du Soleil.
Yeah.
I don't know at this point. It's a lot of uncertainty.
In the before times, I was an acrobat on the stage, you know.
For people who don't know, explain what is a Chinese pole act. What does that look like?
Yeah, a Chinese pole is a vertical pole, and it's covered in rubber. So if you think of maybe traditional pole dancing or pole acrobatics, it's going to be on a metal pole, and you're going to kind of spin around on it. Chinese poles is a little more about strength and acrobatics. So you're doing a lot of big slides, like fireman slides or upside down slides, flipping and catching the pole again, holding a flag out to the side, things like that. So it's a kind of a brutal discipline. It bruises your body a lot. You have to wear a lot of really thick clothing so that you don't burn yourself on the rubber. But for me, it was like discovering a seventh event in gymnastics, like a new event that I had never tried before. So it was kind of fun to pick it up in that way.
Yeah. So you're not in a thong with baby oil.
No, it's not one of those crazy French Canadian. Well, it is a crazy French Canadian number, but maybe in the more clothed version of that. Now, Mystère's act in particular is pretty special because Chinese poles is usually seen as a solo act. So you'll have a guy and he'll move slowly and kind of up the pole and do some acrobatics. But our act is a really high energy group number with about 20 people on stage and a team of 4 or 5 specialists. So we have the chance, I think, to do something a little bit unique and in this kind of classic Cirque du Soleil act, you know, that's in a pretty well-known show. It's really fun to have that group energy and do a Chinese pole act in that style, which is unusual. I don't know why, because I think it's very successful, but we don't see more of it. But it's cool. Our show kind of maintains that unique quality in that way.
It's a cool act. The Chinese pole is a cool act.
Well, going back to your gymnastic days, right? How old were you when you started? What kind of dedication did you have to have? Because I'm always fascinated to hear people's story about their dedication that they have, right? Because people talk, okay, I'm in Cirque now and blah, blah, blah. But people don't see that journey and that dedication and that hours and hours of training that they do every day for years and years on end. So I'm always interested in people's story and to that.
Yeah, the short version is that I really loved Power Rangers as a kid, and I really loved the flips that they could do, and I always wanted to be able to do that. When I was about 8 or 9 years old, I was in a rec class for gymnastics once a week. I was doing taekwondo, I was swimming, kind of doing like the multi-sport thing. And I really just thought it would be so cool to be on the gymnastics team and to really push that seriously. So I kind of came to my mom one day and said I wanted to do that. And just that day we started going into the gym more often. So I went from going once a week to 3 and eventually 5+ days a week through high school, and just got really serious with it, and competing and kind of climbing the levels. But I would say for me, it wasn't until I got to college that I think I really fell in love with gymnastics maybe again, like I had when I was a kid. In high school, it was a very isolated thing for me. There weren't many boys doing gymnastics, in my state even. So I didn't have maybe a lot in common with kids my age, and I was kind of a shy teenager. So it was really cool to go to college and all of a sudden have 20 teammates who were all into the same sport that you were at a very high level and pushing each other. So that environment really drove me and really allowed me to improve quite a bit, I think. I don't think I was not the best gymnast in high school, but I was able to kind of take some of my strengths and really develop in college and get some of those team experiences that are really, really special to me. So it's actually, I have one single tattoo, and it's a Michigan Block M right on my shoulder. And I think it's the only one I'll ever get, but we got that after we won the NCAA team title in 2010.
Yeah. I always love hearing people's story from Cirque like that, because it's always amazes me, people's abilities, right? I'm from a little bit of a different background, being a pro wrestler, and, not acrobatic side of stuff. But, we have talented athletes in pro wrestling, but nothing like the guys in Cirque. Because I remember start off with, and even until we stopped working, I would be in the training room and you're seeing guys just warming up, doing crazy stuff. Guys will be on the trampoline doing doubles and triples and just all kinds of stuff. And these, I see these guys on a day-to-day and we joke around with my friend, and then you forget how talented everyone is because you just see them. It's just, hey, it's John. I'm just having something to eat with John or whatever. And then you see them in the training room and they're doing all this crazy stuff. It's absolutely mind-blowing, the skill level of everyone there. And sometimes I think
people forget, it's kind of like any skill, you have a little bit of talent maybe, but it's really you've done tons and tons of repetitions and numbers, and you've developed the air awareness to do those crazy cool flips. Like I was very jealous of the Power Rangers when I was a kid. So that just really drove me to constantly be bouncing on a trampoline so I think, we were able to develop some of those skills that feel very extraordinary, but are really the result of years of just work and repetition and passion, right?
Yeah.
And then you see the crazy guys occasionally that just chuck all sorts of ridiculous combos and flips.
It's crazy for me. I'd never seen anything like it until I joined Cirque. For you, you've been with, how long have you been with Cirque now?
So I've been with Cirque for 9 years. If I make it to May 2021, that would be my 10-year anniversary. Although the past year has been kind of non-existent, so I don't know if it counts. But yeah, about 9 years.
Okay, cool. So you have obviously a good insight into what it's like for people on the outside, right? They see the show, they see the performance, they see this spectacular performance and show that everyone puts on. Maybe talk to them a little bit about what it's like to work for Cirque and what it's like for you to have been to work for Cirque. I know we're talking about real estate, but I think that's people would be interested to hear about that.
Yeah, I think the maybe one of the most fascinating parts to me about the job are kind of two things. Number one is that despite doing the same show every night 475 times a year, which you can say that to somebody and they go, oh gosh, you must get so bored. And I think that's certainly a potential danger, but it's really easy to remind yourself that what you're doing is unique and special every night because you have a new audience in front of you. You have all of your friends on stage and the connections you make both with your fellow performers and the audience is real. That's why we like live entertainment, because it can be authentic in the moment and you can share that experience. So I have a lot of fun on stage. I think the other cool thing is that the result you get, the show is so special and overwhelming for somebody when they see it the first time. And I think there's this sense that like, oh my gosh, you as an individual must have to put so much of your energy and effort into making it work. And this is true to an extent, but I think part of being able to sustain a show of 475 times a year, 10 a week, is exactly when to turn it on and exactly when to turn it off. So, right after the Chinese pole number is finished, as soon as we're off stage, I just start playing my Nintendo Switch until I have to go back on stage again. And just chatting and hanging out, because I think it's really important to be able to moderate your energy like that so that you can maintain that freshness with the audience.
Yeah. I always think that sometimes the backstage stuff is almost more interesting than the show. The show is amazing. I joke about this, but the stuff that goes on backstage is almost more interesting than what goes on the stage sometimes, because like you said, you perform this amazing act and then there you are sitting in your dressing room just playing
playing some indie platformer.
The same with our show. There'll be guys doing something amazing on stage and then they'll come back and they're playing ping pong in the green room, or they're just eating some food or whatever, or they'll be playing some soccer in the training room or just joking around, right? Because it's like this. I think it's hard for people to understand that you're not on, because people think you're on stage for the majority of the time,
right,
and you're performing this and that. But it's a lot of times it's small portions here and there, and it adds up to a lot because the show's an hour and a half. But it's not go 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 go. It's go, wait a mile, go.
Yes. People ask me all the time if you get nervous when you're on stage, and and I say luckily the answer is no. Once I've really perfected my routine, I guess. Of course, I'm changing things up and doing new stuff, but I think it's important to be comfortable and to also, again, be able to turn it off, because my gosh, if you're doing it 475 times a year and you're having your heart race every single time, that couldn't be healthy. I think people feel this is something that I discovered is very different from college athletics and where you train and then you compete for one time and your adrenaline does really kick in. When you have to maintain a show like for Cirque, you got to really be able to, again, to moderate that and be able to kind of let go and relax backstage.
Yeah, that's something I had to learn early on, because when we were coming up, our show is a lot of fight scenes, and that's mainly what I do, the choreographed fight scenes.
Yeah.
Stuff I could do, crazy stuff, but it was a lot of effort, right? It was 100% effort to do whatever I was doing, and even maybe slightly above 100% effort. And people told me, hey, that looks cool, it's great, and it looks awesome, but you don't want something that takes 100% effort every single, twice a night, 10 nights a week, because you're going to get injured. And secondly, you don't want something that has such a high fail risk, right? Because it's important that you can perform. You want it to look awesome, brilliant, but it needs to be safe, that you can maintain doing that and that you can do it every night. Because like you said, if people listen to this, think about that, 475 shows a year for an hour and a half each, right? Doing, high octane, very specialized and very skillful stuff. That's a lot of performance and a lot of stuff that goes wrong. And that was something that I had to learn early on, that it's better to be slightly on the safer side than on the spectacular side, right? Because you've got to maintain those levels all year round.
Sure. And then luckily you get so many repetitions. I mean, I could literally tell you I've done 3,000 cartwheels, on the Chinese pole because of how many shows I've done, or 3,000 front flips. And that gives me the ability to take a spectacular trick but execute it safely, because I have so many repetitions under my belt, and again, I understand or understood, having done it 4,000, 3,000 times, that when I go up on the pole, you focus in and hone in, do the trick. But then again, if you just being able to change your mental state, I think is really important, and being able to do things safely and consistently.
Yeah. What do you think your favorite part about working for Cirque is? We'll get into the real estate. That's the last question about Cirque, I promise.
Sure. No, I think because I guess you coming from wrestling, you were probably always kind of understood the joy of performing, and this is something that, like I mentioned earlier, I think I discovered later in life when I started working for Cirque. But it was cool because as kids, we all play, and we play pretend in the backyard, and we make up characters and stuff. And as an artist, the kinds of things, I like Pan's Labyrinth and these fantasies and stuff. And so to be in a show where you start playing, like one of the characters I was playing was this, it's called the Devil Giant. It's a stilt walker with 4 limbs, and I've got a mask. And I just have had these moments where I go, oh my God, like this is so cool. I get to play and pretend, for my job. And actually, I forget, what was the question you asked me?
Well, what's your favorite thing for working for Cirque, you think?
So this is it, like rediscovering this like childlike enjoyment of performing, and but doing it from like a really authentic place where and understanding that I have the ability to really create like an engaging relationship with the audience. Those are the moments that I love the most, or when I get to be close to the audience and share a moment with somebody. That's what makes or made the job totally worth it. Yeah, I agree.
And I always enjoyed when I would watch the show. Every now and again they'll have you watch the show and see how magnificent. But just hearing people's reaction around, even
it's super cool.
During the show, when you leave and people are like, wow, that is amazing, or that's the best show I've ever seen, or I can't believe I got to be part of this show, or those kind of things. Because when you're in the audience, when you're performing in the show, you don't always realize that or hear it or get that feedback quite the same. But when you go to see that and you see people's reactions, and I always like when there's a cool act happening, I always like to look around, because you see people's jaws, they're almost hitting the floor, right? They can't believe what they're seeing. And I think that's just amazing to be part of such a big show and to have that, to be so proud, right? To be like, this is my show. This is the show that we put on. I love that, to have that satisfaction.
Yeah, it's a really cool feeling. It's very humbling to just see how much people enjoy it, and you get to be a small part that kind of coalesces into this amazing product. It's really special. I can't wait for live entertainment to come back.
I know, I was thinking the same. I'm starting to miss work now. I'm like,
you got me. I try not to think about it day to day, and now I'm getting all nostalgic. Yeah.
Well, let's jump into the real estate, right? So when did you first start investing in real estate?
When I moved to Las Vegas from Japan, it was early 2012, and I have learned since, I didn't know what I was getting into, but the housing market in Las Vegas in 2012 was so good for a first-time buyer. I was basically able to take all the money I had saved from working my first job in Japan and put a down payment on a house and get incredible pricing and an incredible rate. So I didn't know how good of a deal I really had it back then, but I always knew that I wanted to own property. And I guess I didn't know at the time if I would really get into investing, but I knew that was really important to me. Why would I pay for rent? The classic kinds of things when I can own my home. And so I got to get into like specifics. My first home, I bought a 4-bedroom. I still brag about this, and it's crazy. I bought a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house with a pool and a spa for $140,000.
Oh my God!
And I got a 15-year mortgage at 2.75%. Of course, rates are back that good about right now, but it was insane. My monthly payment was like $900, and I had this beautiful little property. And I got into investing a couple years later when I had saved more money, and I had a conversation with Steve Bland, a friend of mine in the Cirque world also. And I said, hey, I have this money saved up. Like, I'd like to get an investment property. I just had this hunch that this was like the way for me to really create wealth and like a safety net for myself, as opposed to just relying on my yearly salary.
Yeah. I think that's a really interesting point. Something I talk about quite often is that's how I got into real estate, was finding a plan B. What made you think that? Because I'm sure I know plenty of the majority of performers that we work with don't even think like that, right? I'm going to work for Cirque forever. I'm going to, I don't need a plan B, or I don't need, it doesn't even cross their mind. What do you think brought that on for you? Was there a specific circumstance? Was you just getting older? Was it just getting wiser?
No, I think it was a few different things that kind of came together. Number one is that And I went to art school, okay? And I went to art school because I was also very passionate about painting and sculpture and things like that. But I came out of school without an extremely linear career path. So if I had been in the school of engineering or gone to medical school, there's a very set path and there are very clear jobs you can get. And when you go to art school, you can get jobs as graphic designer or things like this. But the kind of like fine art and things that I was interested in, I think I was naive at the time, and hopefully this served me for the best because I've been able to follow my passions. But you come out of art school and a lot of times you don't necessarily have like the clean, I have this degree, so I get this job. And so I think from day one, getting out of school, I understood that my income maybe wouldn't always come from the same place. Coupled with, I didn't grow up performing. I fell into the Cirque du Soleil job. So I guess it had not been my whole life. So it was also really easy to imagine like, well, this will be a chunk of thing that I'll do for this time. And then I will move on to something else. Whether that be, I had no idea when I first got into it that I would be doing it for almost 10 years and still performing, and that at 34 years old, I'd still be an acrobat. Like I didn't think I would make it that long, which has been really cool, but kind of discovering that there are many places to take it. But I guess, to really answer your question, like I always came into Cirque like not expecting it to be forever, or it wasn't all that I knew. And I also had a career choice in the arts that was kind of inherently unstable or lent itself to multiple income streams and freelancing and things like that. So that's really, I think, what got me thinking about investing in real estate, because my whole thing has always been that investing and creating passive income, ideally enables me to jump around with jobs and income streams and have a fluctuating income, because I have this passive kind of like foundation or bedrock to build off of.
Yeah, that makes sense. It gives you that freedom, right? It's that, once you have
yeah, that's the goal. Yeah.
Why real estate though? You could have, plenty of people invest in stocks, plenty of people invest in whatever, right? In businesses.
Yeah.
What made you drawn towards real estate, you think?
I do have money in the stock market, like an IRA, and I've kind of learned the value of that. But I think I guess it was just a hunch, but now I understand that for me, real estate does two things, right? It appreciates over time and it cash flows in the meantime. So you learn the ability to leverage money, put some of your money down, leverage money from a bank, right? And then cover that and create positive cash flow off of that money. But if you've invested $10,000 in a stock and you get a 5% return, that's like your cash flow. You can reinvest it, I suppose. But I guess real estate seems to have this double benefit of long-term appreciation with cash flow at the same time. Of course, I don't like to buy or look for properties, well, as if I'm buying and looking for properties all the time. I'm trying, but looking for properties that aren't gonna. I don't want to gamble, right? And say, oh, like the property's gonna blow up in 3 years, so I'm gonna take a loss on it now. And when it appreciates, because I think that's speculation, and I don't think that's the MO that I'd like to have as a real estate investor. But we can really see over long periods of time, like the stock market, it tends to stabilize and it tends to appreciate in the long term. So if you're able to buy and hold a piece of property and get that cash flow benefit in the meantime, on top of the tax advantages that you learn about, being able to take advantage of, there are a lot of really good reasons to go with real estate. Yeah,
that's perfect. Yeah, that's one of the most perfect explanations why real estate is so good, right? It's that cash flow, right? Because even if that property goes up and down, if you're cash flowing, you're fine, and eventually I'm sure it will go up. Yes. Plus, you're paying down your mortgage if you have a mortgage on the property. Your tenant's paying that down, and the tax benefits as well. And one of my favorite things about real estate is it's fairly easy to understand, right? It has its complexities and it's not that simple. But as opposed to starting your own business or investing in the stock market, I know you do a little bit of stock market, but real estate's fairly simple, right? You buy a property for below what other properties are selling in that area. You get a tenant in. If we're talking about rental property now, you get a tenant in, they pay you rent, you get that money every month, and that's it. You know, hopefully the value of the property goes up. You're making that cash flow. It's just, you know, it's not that complicated. Now, of course, there's complexities within that, but
yeah, sure. It's not complicated, but it is active.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you can put your money in a stock and let it sit and just make sure you keep an eye on it. Real estate, you gotta answer the property manager when they call you and say the AC's broken. Do you authorize this repair? Or here's your you know, renewals coming up. Do you want to raise the rent? So you have to kind of actively engage with real estate, and I think sometimes that can deter people from it. But I think if you set yourself up correctly, it is, as you say, it's not that complicated. It's just a bit more active, maybe.
Yeah. No, I agree. And for those people who, you know, they sometimes use that as an excuse. It doesn't have to be that active either, right? You just a few phone calls, a few texts,
right?
And you can have everything handled. But that's cool. So in what? So I think you said it was in 2016 that you bought your second investment property. What did that look like, and what were you looking?
In 2014, I bought the house that I'm living in right now. I bought this house intending to rent it out because it was too big for me, I thought, and it just didn't. I wanted to be conservative. I thought I should stay in the 4-bedroom house that I have on the 1/4-acre lot, but prices were still very good. I got this home, which is on a 1/2-acre lot with no HOA. It's got a pool. It's a 4-bedroom house, also similar size, but it's on this beautiful lot. And I remember I had people over. Again, my intention was to rent it out and stay where I was. But when I had people over, they looked around and they were like, "Kent, you'd be a fool not to move here. This place is beautiful," you know? And so they kind of talked me into it. And I had a couple of friends in the show that were like, you know, we'll room with you to help pay the mortgage and stuff like that, a bit of house hacking. So I decided to move here. And so I ended up renting out my first home that I had originally bought for myself for 3 more years after that. So that became my first rental property.
Okay, nice. So then how big is this house that you're living in now that you thought was too big for you?
It's about 2,200 square feet.
Okay, a good size.
Yeah, big enough. I just want a bigger art studio. That's all.
That's cool. Did you buy that house intending to rent it and buy it with finance? Did you have to put 20% down, or did you buy it as a primary?
I financed it. I actually to grab this one. At the time, it was an amazing price. It was $295, I think, for this property, which is worth about $430 now, $450 maybe. Okay. Crazy, right? But to get it at the time with my savings, I had to put 10% down and I had to take PMI. So after I was in here for about 1.5 years, I refinanced. I basically converted my 30-year mortgage into a 20-year mortgage, eliminated the PMI, which I thought was a waste of money, and kept my monthly payment about the same. So again, I've always been like a little bit on the conservative side. Conventional wisdom might tell you, keep your cash flow and get your monthly payment down as much as possible. But I actually saw a real benefit when I sold, when I ended up selling my first rental house. I had that 15-year mortgage on it, and I had accumulated so much equity and appreciation that I just had this like massive hit of cash that I was able to then, expand into other properties, because you kind of psychologically, you hadn't even been thinking about it. You just been paying, the mortgage. So anyway, this house that I'm in now, I got to a 20-year mortgage, and just, like I said, rented that house out for a few more years. Yeah.
Cool. What made you sell the first house? Was it just that prices had gone up that much that you thought, or you were just tired of being a landlord?
Yeah. No, I sold my agent and property manager, Steve talked me into it. We had a tenant stay there for 3 years uninterrupted, and then he finally moved out. Steve looked at the property and he explained to me, and I didn't understand this at the time, but basically my opportunity cost I was kind of missing out on, because the easy explanation is that the home value had gone up so much. Mm-hmm. It had basically doubled. It had gone from 140 to about 280. The rent I was getting had not doubled. Yeah. So I had all this equity that was not returning the kind of profit that you could get. Like, it wasn't getting a good return. When I bought the house at the time, 140K was renting for $1,500 a month. That's amazing. Yeah. Like, we don't need to go into the specifics to know that you just can't find that in Vegas anymore. So that the rent has gone up. Maybe you could rent for $1,700 a month now, but for a $300,000 house, that's not proportional, you know? So when I kind of wrapped my head around that and started reading a couple of books, it was like, okay, I do have this equity that I'm not taking advantage of. So instead of waiting, my goal was originally just pay that house off 10 more years, and then it'll be a really nice passive investment. But why not generate actual cash flow now, you know, in other properties, and have 10 years of cash flow and growth, and then hit that. So that's what kind of prompted that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's always talked about return on investment, right? ROI. It's always talked about cash on cash return, whatever metric you use, it's the same thing, basically.
Yeah.
Return on that initial investment that you put into that property. But that isn't always a good, you can look at that metric for sure. But like you mentioned there, when you have a high appreciating asset, right? It was something that's doubled in value. You've got to look on your return on equity. What is your return on 280,000 or whatever you had at? It's going to be much smaller. And like you said, that opportunity cost, right? You can take that equity and maybe buy 1, 2, 3 more houses. So now you have, instead of having one house, you have 3 houses that you have tenants in, that you're cash flowing, that you're paying down the mortgage, the house is hopefully appreciating, you're getting tax benefits on all those.
Yeah, exactly. You nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, you've tripled what you have in a way. Now, obviously, your cash flow might not be as much on that one property, but over all of them, it might be a larger, and all the other benefits, you know, it just grows gives you that ability to scale up a lot more, you know. And there's no right or wrong way to do it, because also if you paid it off, that would have been great, right? Have a completely paid off house. Nothing can really go wrong if you can pay your tax.
I'll tell you what I did with the appreciation of the equity when I sold the property was I went ahead and bought a condo with cash because I could. So I immediately, instead of I was maybe cash flowing like $100 a month on that first property. Now I'm cash flowing about $500 a month, you know, and I'm not waiting 10 years to start that process. So because I own that condo outright, again, that's even by conventional wisdom a little bit conservative, but it was a very stark example right there of how I could do that.
So you just bought a condo? Did you buy more? What did you use?
No, when I sold my first home, I bought a condo with cash, and then I financed. The goal was to get 3 properties, to get a condo and then finance 2 smaller homes. And then I stumbled upon this crazy mid-century downtown house that appealed way too much to my emotions and was a good deal. And I kind of just took the plunge into that one. So I have the condo, and then I have this mid-century downtown single-family house.
Cool. Well, let's talk about the condo first, because condos always, I feel like, get somewhat of a bad rap, right? People always say never invest in a condo. Condos are a bad investment, right? How has that investment been for you? How have you found owning a condo?
I think I would describe it as it's been a safe investment. Like, I haven't crunched the numbers recently. The cap rate is probably, you know, if investors are looking for a cap rate that's like 7-8%, this is probably more in the 6%-ish. It's not horrible, but you could say, like, somebody who with a lot of experience and knowledge might be like, oh, like I can make my money work much better than in that condo. But that being said, it's in a good location in Vegas that I believe in. It's paid for. The numbers work out really cleanly. That I'm able to cash flow it pretty well. I bought it for $86,000 or $89,000, and it rents for about $850 a month. So again, if you do like that kind of like finger to the wind 1% rule, it makes sense to look at further. So I don't think it's like a horrible place to put my money. People might disagree with me, but it feels like a very safe place to put my money.
Yeah, and I like the way how you do that. You kind of hedged your bets a little bit, right? You bought one property with cash, so you had no matter what, you own that property, right? Nothing can kind of take that away for the most part, right? And then you financed another one, so that now you have one completely paid off and you have one finance. You have kind of the best of both worlds. You have one that's safe and one that's a little bit more risky. So I think that's really smart. Now, what about this second property? This sounds like an interesting one. Tell us more about that one.
I bought that one at the same time, so that was about spring 2018. It's a beast of a house. It's a 3,300 square foot single family custom Polynesian tiki ranch house. So we went to that is you walk inside, and this, you know, they just, like in Vegas, Barry, you probably know, they don't make homes like this anymore. It's like you walked inside and there's these walls of black lava rock, like this basalt lava rock, you know, like wrapping around this leather bar, all these cool original light fixtures, a really awesome floor plan, just sprawling. Such cool original vintage stuff that you know felt like dated, but in like a good way, you know. In like now the, you know, mid-century modern is like all the rage right now. Is kind of been a trend for a while, and there was a lot of really cool stuff in that house that appealed to me. There's like a hidden safe in the floor at one point, and I've been able to learn about the history of the home, and the original builder was this guy named Frank Schivo and his wife Shirley Schivo. They were he was a casino executive for this Sahara Hotel, and I have like met his son has come and toured the house again with me, and yeah, I met some of the families that grew up there in the 70s. So like the house, you could just tell like had a lot of history and a lot of character. But that said, when I bought it, it was in kind of bad shape. It had been held by a couple for a long time, and there had been a lot of deferred maintenance. So the foundation was a little bit unstable. The concrete was buckling a bit. The kitchen was in big need of a renovation, but I was just so attracted to the space of it. And then because of the necessity for renovations, you know, I got that house for $340K. So about $100 a square foot, which is pretty dang good. So I financed that one, and I had a little bit of cash left over to go ahead and get the kitchen renovated. So basically that home has been this constant kind of like a slow flip, I suppose, where I've like continued to rent it out, but I'm bit by bit chipping away at the renovations that need to happen. But also because I love that mid-century and the custom tiki ranch that it is, I think it's a really fun project to kind of honor the original intention of the builder and the owners, but, you know, like modernize it. So like trying to like preserve a bathroom wall so that the original tile can stay there, but you can like create a cool new shower around it and stuff like that. It's been really cool. I mean, it takes about probably way too much of my time, but it's a really fun project.
That sounds like a really fun project, like you said. You never thought about moving into that one?
No, it's too big.
Oh, really?
It's like, yeah, it's too big. And honestly, I got a couple dogs, and they like to run around in the yard out here. I got a pretty big lot here that they enjoy, and it just, yeah. I will say I did think about it when I first bought it. You know, there was that like, is this going to happen or not? But after buying it and starting the renovations, I guess I got a little bit like kind of cold feet, and it just seemed to make sense to stay here. Yeah.
So what do you think that property is worth now? I think you said you paid $340 for it.
Well, I think the market in Vegas is a little bit out of control right now. I saw, I've now renovated the kitchen and all of the bathrooms, and I just put a pool back in. The house used to have a pool. All the deferred maintenance also meant that at one point the pool had been filled in with rocks. So it was just a rock garden out back. So this summer I took the risk of renovating that and redesigning it and getting the pool back. So now that I feel like most of the major renovations are complete and all the things are in place, I think it should appraise for over $500,000 pretty easily. I had a comp just come up in that neighborhood, a very similar sized house, in my opinion, in a slightly poorer location, but with similar kind of quality level finishes and everything, go for like $575. So I think even $500, I might be being conservative. But like I said, the market's a little wild and crazy right now, and I'm trying to hold on to this property for a lot longer. But it does make me feel good that it seems that the renovations will pay off.
Yeah. What do you do with that property? Is it a long-term rental or?
I have it. It's a furnished rental. So people think Airbnb. And typically what I'll do is rent it for 31 days at a time. If you rent for 31 days, it's considered a long-term rental, but not how we would typically think of it as a conventional year lease. So I'll have people come. I've had poker players, for example, who come for the summer and they want to stay in the house for 3 months, but they obviously don't want to move all their stuff. They want to have a furnished place that's easy to just slide right into. So the house is kind of, and I did this because for the neighborhood, a lot of the homes around it are smaller. So people that look in this area to rent, it's unfortunately, with all the costs that are involved, it's out of most people's price range. So people don't look at this kind of house. I tried to list it long-term, and they don't look at it as a long-term rental, like at a good rate, or at the rate that it needs to even just like cash flow, like to kind of break even after debt payments and stuff. So the furnished rental has been a really stressful risk that I took. But this way I've been able to cash flow it like decently well and hold on to it and continue to renovate it, which was important.
Yeah. Is it stressful because it's hard to constantly find someone to get in there? Or was it stressful to furnish? What would you say is the stressful part about it?
The stressful part is just just the higher tenant turnover, you know? So you basically, you know, I could, like, for example, I just got, I've had a group in for the whole month of October, and I just in mid-November, I just got a group who wants to move for up to 5 months, and they signed on for the first month. But this is the kind of thing where, like, I look 3 weeks down the road and I don't have any income, and I have a big mortgage payment and a big finance payment on the pool and all this stuff. And then overnight I get a request, it comes in, I convert, and then all of a sudden I'm positive $1,000 for the month on my net operating income. So it's like, it's stressful like that. It's like a ride. It's like a roller coaster.
I can see that. It's just the never-ending wanting to get that tenant in, right? Because anyone who owns long-term tenants, it's stressful until you get that tenant in, and you're like, okay, I'm good for a year for the most part, right? But
right. And I don't know if anybody who is listening, you know, is in Vegas or knows anything about the short-term rental game in Vegas, which is very hot-button topic in a lot of neighborhoods. But what's been maybe the most stressful for me is a couple years ago I tried to get a permit so that I could legally and officially rent it for shorter than 31 days at a time, because I had the sense that the house is really close to the convention center and to a lot of places downtown, and people that are maybe coming to a convention for a week, or they're coming for a sports tournament or things like that would like to use it. I was not able to really get that permit because there's some really weird regulations in place at the time I applied. You have to be 660 feet from another already licensed. Like, if there's another licensed one within 660 feet from you, it makes it really, really hard to get that permit. And I was 569 feet away from another property. So I was literally less than 100 feet too close, but still quite far. So that has been extra stressful because I can't rent it out that way. And I think a lot of the work that people were doing to change the policy around that into something that kind of benefited the neighborhood and the property owner sort of fell on the wayside. What ends up happening is properties like mine get grouped into party homes and party mansions. And this is like this is a bit of a real issue in my opinion in Vegas. You know, I kind of advocate for the ability. I'd like to be able to short-term rent the property the way I'd like, but I'd also like the neighborhood to be able to have a peaceful residential neighborhood. I respect that. And in my own neighborhood where I live, we have a few party houses that very clearly are party houses, and they put in features that just make them feel more like businesses, to be honest. And then you'll see these large groups of people, I mean, in COVID times too, which is crazy, but you'll see these big parties come through my neighborhood, and I understand how they can be disruptive to guests. So I've worked hard to, you know, honor the house and renovate it the way it needs to be renovated. And I would like to not have the stress of needing to rely on these longer term stays, while at the same time, you know, I've hopefully shown my neighbors, right, that I'm not about to rent this house. I'll want to rent it to some bachelor party for the weekend because I care too much about the property. But I think there's this sweet spot of, again, week long, you know, people coming to a convention, or people that want to work from home maybe right now and want to get to Vegas where the weather's nice, but they don't want to stay a whole month. They want to stay 2 weeks. Like, I think that should be okay. And this is something that I try to advocate for when I can. I try to be a good example of when I can, but I do have to stick to those longer renovations or longer stays right now, and it makes it very stressful. That's my very long answer.
No, good answer. No, it's a good answer. It's a good answer. But that sounds like a really interesting property and a really interesting project that you have there. Yeah,
there's probably been about 5 times where I've just thrown my hands in the air and thought, my gosh, I need to just sell this thing and be done with it. But I like it too much. Like I said, it's maybe a bit too close to my heart, but getting to meet the families that grew up there in the 70s and them show me old pictures of the orange shag carpet that was in the kitchen, it's like you hear these crazy stories, and also these like emotional stories about their parents and why they bought the property so that they could, kind of live and always feel like they're on vacation because they had to work from home back at the time. And just really cool stuff. Like, I keep in touch with a couple of the families that used to live there that are still in Vegas, and it's really awesome. I think it's really unique, to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not your regular investment property, right? It's not.
No, it's not. It will be my only one like that. Yeah.
So is that do you own anything else outside of that?
I don't. So I have the home I live in, the condo that I rent, and the beast of a tiki ranch that I rent out.
Yeah, all of which are great deals, I'd say. From
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. What's next for you? You think?
So
outside of Cirque, just in real estate, we don't. With Cirque.
Yeah, in real estate, what I've wanted to do and what I was kind of trying to do before we lost our jobs, unfortunately, was leverage some of that equity that I have in the condo so that I could continue to hold on to both those properties, but get into something else. I am really interested in multifamily investing, and I've talked to now like you and a couple of people about that and what I could maybe do with maybe like 50 grand. I've considered selling the condo to cash out and take the money and put it into multifamily. I think I need to make a couple more chess moves, right? So that I can see the kind of doors open up for the ability to acquire a lot more property. I'm now a couple years have tax returns showing the business generating its income, and hopefully can use that to show that the properties are handling themselves outside of the traditional, does his W-2 income, support the debt that he wants to take on. So start to kind of gear it more towards like a business. But this has been honestly delayed for probably a year or so, maybe partly because of that massive house just requiring so much work and renovation, but also with the pandemic, it just kind of brought everything to a halt.
Yeah. Not having that W-2 income can obviously affect your DTI, right, and the ability to get loans and stuff like that. So yeah. So as the show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, I always like to ask wrestling-themed questions to the guests.
Okay.
I think I sent you them before, so you had a little bit of a heads up to know.
I had a quick 2 minutes to look at them.
I don't like to give you too much time to think about it.
Yeah.
The first question is, if you had to pick a wrestling name for yourself, what would it be? What would your wrestling name be?
Okay. I thought about this quickly. Because I have this mid-century Polynesian tiki ranch house, I thought I'd maybe call myself the Retro Rascal.
I like
so
it.
I envision like a very, like antiquated like look. I don't know, like a high waistline, colorful pop art clothing and stupid glasses or something. I don't know, like a kind of like maybe like an Andy Warhol thing or something.
I like it. Every wrestler has a special move. What would your special move be in real estate? So what is your strength, you think, in real estate?
I think my strength is that I'm pretty good with numbers and analyzing deals. I think it's maybe more interesting to talk about weaknesses, but I think my strength has been, that I think I can run numbers, analyze deals, and I believe I can ask the right questions at this point with my experience.
Cool. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate career? What's something that's gone wrong?
Okay, yeah, I thought about this, and I'll give you two answers. One is obvious, and one is maybe not so obvious. So the obvious body slam is that I renovated the pool, and this happened right when I lost my job. I decided to pull the trigger on borrowing a bunch of money, leveraging that to get the pool built. Thought I could do it for a certain price, and I'm even embarrassed to talk numbers with this because it cost me twice as much and took me 2-3 times as long. It was my first time managing. I subcontracted it out. I still think I got a good deal on the pool that I built. I think I built an unnecessarily large pool, but that property is a special property. So it's got a really nice pool in it, but maybe not the most on paper like economical financial decision. So that was hard. And also the time lost of not having that pool done over the summer and not being able to generate the additional revenue that it now is generating was really difficult to stomach. But luckily it didn't KO me. I'm still on my feet. It was just, that was a big body slam for sure. I think one of the other ones is, ironically, that I saw such good appreciation on my first rental property, right? Like again, the deal was so good, the appreciation was so good that I think it's made me like have too high of a standard, to be honest, for like getting deals. And it makes me too afraid of moving maybe as quickly or aggressively as I could, because I don't think we'll see a market like that ever again. And so for that to be the one that you kind of come into, it sort of spoils you. And I think that ironically doesn't necessarily serve me for the best all the time. Of course, cashing out on it was great and allowed me to do some great things. But I think it makes me like I need to push myself a little bit more to see beyond that market or not wait for something like that to happen again.
I can completely understand that. I bought a house in 2017, and I'm still, when I was looking pre-pandemic, I was still comparing, well, it's more than what I pay for this house, so I can't buy it. I still am like, but this is 3 years later or 2 years later.
I will say this is what I really like though about multifamily and analyzing deals as an investor, because you can find good deals in any kind of market cycle, and it just boils down to the numbers. So if you can run the numbers and they make sense, and especially from a cash flow perspective for me and a cash on cash return perspective, then you understand that there are ways to invest in any kind of market. And lots of people will talk about that without buying into the hype, let's say, of like, oh, the market's going up, so I'm just going to get in,
No, I agree. Was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
That was deciding to build that swimming pool in that rental property, because I was ready to do it. And this was in early March. I was ready to close the house for a couple months to get the renovation done. And then the pandemic hit and I lost my job. So now I said, oh, great, I'm going to pull out, $50K plus to renovate bathrooms and put in a pool. And I don't have a job. Like, this is either the smartest or dumbest decision I've ever made, potentially. What pushed me over the edge was, again, running the numbers. I was very confident that not only could I pay back the finance payments, but that I could also see increased cash flow from these additions to that house and getting it renovated that way. So I think just running the numbers, having the conversations with people, and also, ironically, the pandemic closed everything down for 2 months. So I wasn't nobody was traveling to Vegas. Nobody was coming to poker tournaments anymore. That was not on the table for a while. So I had to kind of scare myself into just taking advantage of that vacant time, despite having no job. But I think that's what did it, and convinced me that ultimately I think it will work out for the best.
Yeah, long term, I'm sure you'll be glad that you did it, right? Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks so much, man, for making the time today. It's been a really fun interview. It's cool to talk to a fellow performer who's also
likewise. Yeah, definitely.
Also interested in real estate, right? I think it's a really fun interview. Before I go, if anyone wants to reach out to you and get in touch with you, how can they do so?
You could actually you could go to my website, which is not going to look like real estate at all. It's kentcaldwell.com, KentCaldwell.com. And I think my email address is on there. It's kent@kentcaldwell.com. It's only me. That's my portfolio website for my art and stuff. So there's a little bit of contact information there. And I'm pretty social media searchable.
Cool. Okay, well, hopefully, man, we'll be back performing before we know it. But
I hope so too. Yeah. Before we get
to absolutely. Well, in the meantime, man, enjoy your time off, and been great speaking today. Thank you for making the time.
Likewise, Barry. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to today's episode. I really appreciate each and every one of you for listening to the show. I have a lot of fun doing these shows, so I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you guys enjoy it as much as I do. As always, will you please like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate? It really helps me grow this channel and get better guests. And also, more importantly, if you can go on the podcast and give me a 5-star rating and write me a great review. People really look at that when they look at the show and they consider being a guest. So the more I can grow the show, the better I guess I can get on the show, and the more quality I can provide for you guys. So I would really, really appreciate it. And I've set a goal of reaching 100 5-star ratings and 100 great reviews. So if you guys can go on there, it would take you maybe 5 minutes total. I would really appreciate that. And then if you've done, reach out to me so I can thank you personally for doing that. But yeah, again, thank you for sticking around for the show, and thank you for being a listener to my show. I really appreciate each and every one of you.